Hi, this is Greg Lush, your city manager in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Welcome to Lebanon in Depth. We're very happy today, it's a beautiful day here in October, to discuss our recent presentation of a community conversation, where we had an opportunity to have a real good conversation with the persons that have been tragically adversely affected by the extreme weather events that we experienced here in Lebanon during this last summer. And I brought with me members of our presenting group in the conversation, and more importantly than presenting, but actually the people that got in, we rolled up our sleeves and sat around the table and talked to the people that were affected on Slayton Hill Road, and also on Dulac and Tannery Lane, who are at the bottom of the hill of this road. And I think this is a real challenge for us in dealing with extreme weather events. And then the next show we have after this one, I'm going to devote attention to the changing weather scene, the climate adaptation issues that are presented to us as a community, and where do we go and how do we handle it, how do we live in a world like this. So that'll be our next show. But the reason we have these conversations, and we had this at the Courtyard Marriott, was because we have some goals, and part of it is just to have us kind of mutually engaged. Like on the show, you watch the show, hopefully you'll send questions, hopefully you'll think about some of the things that are said on the show about the city. But our goals, and I said it at the night of some of our conversations, one, we want to work directly with the public, and that's communicate with you. We want to ensure that public concerns, your concerns and aspirations, and that they are consistently understood and considered. We promise to work with you and engage in conversations with you. We want to partner with you. I mean, with the partnership, it's our roles. We have all our respective roles, and we need to play it together in a partnership kind of arrangement. We'll look to you for direct advice and counsel. We think you may have some creative ideas and maybe some innovative things that might help. You oftentimes know the terrain very well where we're engaged in work, or when a subject matter, when we're engaged in conversation. We really want to do empowerment. I think we all want to be empowered. We want to be participatory and have people come to the table and participate. We want to have a kind of this shared decision making model where we listen to you before we actually get into, here's the plan in the box, here it is, take it or leave it. We'll listen to you a little bit in the kind of lip service. No, that's not what we believe in. We believe in, here's the situation, here's some of the data, here's some of the information. We like to give pictures and pictorial descriptions of what's taking place. Let you look at it, get your hands involved. We like to meet you on your lawn sometimes in the walkabouts. And in the community buildings where we find in the community, we come to you, and whether it's Sachem Village or whether it's a particular public area available to us to meet. With regard to this particular subject matter, we met in the Carter Country Club area where we went up to their clubhouse, and we had a good meeting there. And then people did a walkabout, and so all this is great. I think the way we approach it, it's a new way. We want to inform, we want to consult, but we really want to get you involved in making the decisions. That being said, I'll introduce our guests. Our first guest is our engineering firm representative who is charged with the Slayton Hill Road construction. And Mr. McNamara, I would want you to kind of what's your full name and describe how you got involved in the business you're involved with right now as an engineer.
Well, my name's Dave McNamara. I work with Face Buffett and Thorndike. I guess I was always interested in construction and big trucks and whatnot growing up. So I went to college, and civil engineer seemed like kind of a natural path for me. So that's where I got my start.
That's good. How long have you been doing it now?
I've been doing it for almost 14 years.
Mm-hmm. So you have really seen probably quite a few projects during this time.
Yes, definitely worked on a number of different projects.
Has it been the New England area, New Hampshire area, in terms of where you've been?
Yeah, almost all the projects I've worked on have been primarily New Hampshire, a little bit of work in Mass and Maine.
Yeah. Well, also today, I was with our Public Works Director, Mike Lavalla, a key partner with me in trying to deal with these issues that we have in our community. And Mike and Dave are going to touch base on some of these things about, I think we have a number of things as kind of what that night we talked about our existing conditions of what we were facing. And I think we started out with a slide, and we'll try to have it on the screen as we talk. And the slide kind of illustrated on why we ended up in the fix we ended up in. This summer, many of us know how these rain events. I remember I was out in both the rain events, and our employees were out there fighting right from the get-go to try to deal with this rain that was coming down. Our fire department, our firefighters were up, and they did some really fine work in tandem with our public works folks, and that's quite an endeavor. But the intensity of the rainfall was I think it's a different kind of breed of a storm than maybe we always see. Last year we had the tropical storm that rose out of a hurricane. This year, these microbursts. I never heard of a microburst until this whole thing started happening, and then microburst comes in. You can just kind of visualize what a microburst is. But microburst being, a small area, but then a burst of energy, and this happens to be rain. And then in our June, and what happens is, as people will probably more thoroughly explain, as we get more into it down the road, we have quite a bit of rain, pretty heavy rain on a regular basis for a period of time. It saturates the soil, so it puts our infrastructure working at a very higher capacity. And then along comes a microburst. And what happens, like we got saturation rain June and July, some 15 inches total. July 1st, we got 1.54, almost 2 inches of rain, very, very quickly. And July 2nd, we got almost 4, it was 3.57 inches of rain, very, very quickly again. And when that rain hit that saturated area, and especially with some of our steeper areas and some of our slopes, and then, of course, with their underlying terrain as to ledge and how much soil you have and what you have for holding, it really rushed, and it really hit our infrastructure very, very strongly. I think that some persons would like to know, because there's kind of a feeling, well, how did this happen? And we went back and we looked at pre-storm, pre-event. We went back and looked at how things evolved. And Mike, would you like to make some comments on Slayton Hill in particular, as to the forerunner as it was developed in the past and built?
Sure. Slayton Hill, there was a capital project that was completed there in 2002 to 2003, where the road was upgraded, ditching and some culverts were upgraded. The area on Slayton, with its designation as a scenic road, that played into the amount of final development of the project. We're constrained to some degree on what, at the time, the council and a number of people commenting on the project wanted the footprint to remain fairly narrow and close to what was already out there. So you have a very steep road in some areas, a very narrow window of available footprint to be able to handle the water. And on top of that, we have recently, as you alluded to, conditions where the soil was saturated, and when these heavy rain events took place, with the saturation, it's also moving a lot of debris, which plugged some culverts, overtop culverts, and then rushed down the road. So the infrastructure itself, for the most part, would handle most of the storms there. Is just when you get these unique events that really impact the infrastructure, it just overwhelms them, and we saw that in July.
I know, and like I want to assure people in our community and our citizens, our residents, and our stakeholders that, somebody asks, well, is that just an excuse from the city that the scenic road therefore it pulled out? I want to be sure and let you know that that's not really, we're not making excuse making. One of our duties, I think, and absolutely, is to provide accurate information, accurate settings, because I think all our memories sometimes can be selective in parts, and we lose part of. I find it myself as I've grown older that I don't recall everything the way things were, and so we really need to be fact-based in our city, and so that's what we're trying to do, being fact-based, because trying to see where we were, see what happened, and see where we're going, all have some logic to it. And if we don't understand exactly where we were or where we've been, we might influence what we're doing currently and where we're going. So it's no means excuse making, it's just the nature of this road. And I remember first driving it when my first week here in Lebanon, and that was 3 years ago, that I took the drive up to Slayton Hill. I found it remarkably beautiful. I'm not familiar with the scenic road designation myself. I would call it something else in the Midwest, and then I recognized it, and it was indeed scenic. It was indeed very, I thought, very enjoyable. Appearance is quite very beautiful, and now we have overlaid these weather events into that situation, and it means that we have to. I guess first of all, we had to respond, and we have been responding from the get-go and we currently continue to respond. And then that's something we should talk about a little bit, and then we should talk a little bit that we need to have a transition strategy to transition us through the winter, because winter is not a good time to be in full-blown construction. As everybody in the community knows quite well, that it's, to take on a project and try to complete it in the winter is probably just it's a non-starter kind of idea. So we're in our final solutions would be in the spring when we would initiate construction. But in the meanwhile, we have to do something to prepare now in the fall to try to get us through winter. So the first one maybe is the forced response from the time we start hitting the pavement with all this stuff that was happening, and bring it to date. Could you describe a little, Mike, what that might be?
I'd be happy to. Initially, with the damage to the road, we had many areas that were impassable. Much of the material which was in the road, as people will recall, ended up at the bottom of Slayton Hill where it meets Dulag Street and Tannery. We had upwards of 10 feet of debris in that area. So the first response in terms of the infrastructure on the roads was removing material, making things passable so we could work up the street to reestablish it, at least for one lane. And on top of that, we had a water main break, which was caused by the surface water flow undermining the water main, which was an additional project that we had to do to put in temporary water main. Fast forward to today, we have reinstalled the existing water main. We're in the process of testing it now, pressure testing it, and putting it back online. We have armored probably the first 600 feet from Slayton Hill to the south, and reestablish the road width to at least a minimum of 20 feet. So we're going to develop the infrastructure to the point where we can reestablish the ditches, armor them, get a 2-lane road in, repave areas that need to be for the winter, and then come back in the spring with a full project. In terms of the drainage, one thing that's come out of the debriefing and review of what happened and what's there, we've found with Dave's assistance that we definitely need a more robust drainage system in that area. And that's what we are planning. We're planning a much more robust system to be able to adequately manage the events that we are seeing. Are we going to be able to design a system that we can say will always function, will never have an event that will impact it? I don't think we can say that, but I think we can say that we are moving in a positive way to develop a system that will handle the majority of the events that we'll see in the future. And Dave can comment more to that as they've gone through and done their drainage study.
That's good. That's great. The other thing I'll mention, and then we're going to have Dave kind of talk about maybe the new normal and the new standards and what might be necessary for the road in terms of just the looking at. I know the analysis is ongoing. We're in process, so it's not that we have reached full conclusions. We're just in process. When things like this happen, and I grew up in Tornado Alley, as I've said on the show before, so I lived with disaster after disaster out in Kansas and Oklahoma, where my families were from. Both sides of my family. My one side was Oklahoma, Oklahoma City. All the tornadoes they had, it's always been a tornado place. Kansas, which is, the Wizard of Oz state, has always been full of tornadoes. But there was disasters in cities. And basically Kansas towns and cities had to adjust into finding a new way of doing business because these tornadoes were unpredictable. Just simply unpredictable, and we had to find new ways of business, new way of building things, how you build things, and what you have to do for your infrastructure. And we're kind of into a possible new pattern in this direction too. We'll see. So that's an important thing. How to pay for it is always the big. It's what you do to address the risk to the public, and then how do you pay for it, and what sources are available. We've had FEMA in. FEMA continues to be in. FEMA, we have partnered with FEMA, their responsibilities, because in the United States the choice has been made as a policy measure that the largest amount of money for storm fighting is coming from the federal government, but it's not a complete fix. So they have had to draw limits in the federal government matter of policy, and the fix is that they will restore to existing condition. They also have sometimes other pots of money for particular hazardous situations, some particular pots of money, but their general pot of money is for restoring to pre-existing condition. And then once they determine that amount, that's their call. We submit all our figures as to costs and all our projections, and then they make a determination after inspecting and analyzing and then basically conferring them within their officials to come up with the number. And once that number is given, then they take up 75% of the cost of that number, and the city or any jurisdiction that's the responsible jurisdiction picks up the other share through other means. Now, that's in process now, and we'll know what our share is eventually here within this fall. And then we'll have to handle it, and what we're looking for in terms of handling it, we'll look to capital reserves, we'll look for if there's monies that were not spent and were available in the existing budget, or we will look to the CIP program, which is the capital improvement program of the city. Very formal document. Significant projects get put in there. The fix, the big one next year, will be a CIP program. And when we have the number, we will bring it to the council's attention through a process. It may be separate from the CIP. It depends. We have the number, but it'll be just the same analysis we do for the CIP projects. We have some very large ones now with our CSO program. So for you and the public to understand that there's money issues associated with it, might lead to some policy discussions as we go about how far we go to try to reach that, what Mike said is a reasonable level of protection, to protect a reasonable amount of these extreme weather events. So that business is going on. We've been partnering with Public Works, our finance department, our bonding agencies. So we're looking at that now. So we'll keep the public informed as we go. So I'm just going to move toward Dave now about, all right, now Now that I might talk about the things that you are seeing, experiencing, the process you're going through, applying standards that are appropriate to this particular road and with the particular circumstances.
Sure. What we're looking at is, well, at least to start with, was twofold. We looked at the sizing of all the existing cross culverts. I believe there was 22 of them that crossed Slayton Hill Road, along with the roadside ditch, which is primarily along the uphill side of Slayton. And we found that I think it was about 8 of the cross culverts were undersized for the larger storms. They could handle some of the smaller storms, but when you get into some of the bigger storms, they were undersized to varying degrees. I know at the meeting we talked quite a bit about a box culvert that's right near number 37 Slayton Hill Road, and that was quite a bit undersized, and that certainly appears that overtopped, and the excess water coming from that is what caused a lot of the damage on the lower portion of Slayton. So we're making our way through. We've come up with sizing for the upgrades to the culverts that need to be upsized. Some of the ones that worked may have been overtopped during the storm because of smaller ones upstream of it, sending water down and damaging ones that normally would be adequate as long as the fixes were in place above them. And then the second part is looking at the roadside ditch. We had quite a bit of talk about that at the meeting as well. Right now we've sized kind of a worst case scenario ditch, which is about a 2-foot bottom, 2 feet deep, with 3-to-1 side slopes on either side. And that's quite a bit bigger than what's out there today. And one of the big pieces of information and one of the big talking points of what we've been looking to have with the abutters is how that's going to impact the frontage of their properties. As I said, it is the worst case scenario. What we're looking to do is kind of start out with the biggest impacts and work our way in based on various constraints that may be in the yards, whether it be stone walls, septic systems, stuff like that. So in terms of the ongoing discussions, those are really the two big topics that we have now. As we go forward, we'll be taking in the information we gleaned from the walkabouts, what we learned the other night, and use that to start refining our design, looking a lot closer at exactly where that ditch may be able to get narrowed down and shrunk, because the water just isn't getting to that spot, focusing on the bigger problem areas, and then really starting to nail down exactly where the impacts are, both potentially to property and also to natural resources, so we can get into the permitting process.
Because there'll be permitting definitely involved in the process that we're contemplating.
Yes, yeah, we're certainly anticipating there's going to be some wetlands impacts. We have met with DES. They've been involved from the beginning. They're certainly aware of what happened out here. We've kind of gone over the basics, the general plan that we have going forward. They've indicated a willingness to work with us and try to expedite their process in order to make sure the project keeps going and the road gets put back into a form that that will last and hold up.
Yeah, and so I think you and the public, and particularly those parties that are affected on Slayton Hill and Dulac and Tannery, see this kind of process going on. The other night when we were meeting in the community conversation, which we're kind of reflecting on at the show today, I really love the fact that your firm and our public works engineering folks and the public works folks, you had a very long map showing segments of Slayton Hill and showing on down to Dulac, and in one area was on to Dulac and Tannery, and that people gathered around the maps in kind of clusters of people that lived in the particular areas the maps reflected, and they participated by pointing out their house and where their driveway, and they started probably showing things like the stone fences, and then I know there was good communication going back and forth between your representatives from your firm and the representatives from the Public Works Department with individuals. How did you feel about that experience and going through that the other night?
We thought it was very productive. We got a lot of good information. We got, in addition to learning some of the stuff that I talked about in terms of constraints, various impact or potential impacts to the construction, I think we also learned a lot about some flow patterns and some other kind of hidden parts of the project, I guess, if you will, that wouldn't necessarily be apparent to someone new to the area, just, walking up down the road. We've got survey, but they were able to say, water collects over here. There's a little stream that's hard to see through the woods, and it diverts everything over into this area. So we definitely, we came away with a lot of good information, and a lot of stuff we're going to be able to use going forward, and as we refine the design.
And one of our next steps right here, and many of you might be watching the show when we have one of these things, because we're going to have walkabouts. We started the walkabout process as part of our technique of engaging, and we're very sincere in the walkabout, as we were very sincere in having a community meeting. We actually go into roads. We started with the CSO projects. We've had some good ones at 9 and 10, and we also started with we did on mechanics. We have a Mechanics Street project and a Muskoma Greenway project. So the walkabouts are going on, and we're deploying that technique. We find it very useful, but because it's a fairly long distance, and because of the daylight hours, we're going to have a number of walkabouts, because we're going to have to cover up segments. And I'm signing letters now on the city manager, as city manager, to going to their individual residents, spelling out when the walkabout is coming to their neighborhood, and that'll be happening here in October, in the second, third weeks of October. So I think our website's really important too, right, Mike? We keep information on our website with regards to this.
Yeah, the access on the website, they can go to the project. We've got a page just on the disaster. We've got through Public Works, we've got links where you can go to individual projects. So we try to put as much as we can on the web page. We really desire the public's input into this, whether it's at the walkabout or a meeting or through Level getting feedback through Ask Web. And
absolutely. And Dave's firm, and the Public Works are closely partnering, and we have a lot of other agencies that we're also connecting with. That night of the community meeting, we had the visiting nurses, we had the school district transportation, of course some female representatives at the meeting, and of course our regional development commission. So we've got a lot of people involved, and Upper Valley Strong, who helped people, and our utility companies have been working with us on the issues, and so we've been trying to work collaboratively with everyone that needs to service or research service on that street. So you'll be seeing us. I intend to try to make most of the walkabouts myself to listen to people. So you'll be seeing us on Slayton Hill, and you'll also see us on Dulac and Tannery as part of our walkabout scheme. We hope that you like this approach in the members of the public, and we hope you like this way of doing business, because it's really us doing it together. And that's why we're doing this, because we think we can have better infrastructure working together. The nuances that David described, I think my uncle, we used to say he'd always know the back 40, and he knew the back 40 very, very closely. And people that know their front yards, they know where their different infrastructure themselves, where their drainage systems or sewer systems and their walls and things that are important to them. And we want to know that so we can see what we can do. And you'll see the challenge of changing the nature of the road to a road that's more sustainable in light of the events. And then we'll have this discussion. I think if this is a continuing phenomena, we're going to have some discussions in the community policy-wise with the council, looking to your feedback as to how far we go in upgrading the infrastructure we have based on the services provided and the people who need these services, the population. It's a challenging thing for lower populated areas with steep slopes and ledge. So we're we're positive. One thing about it, the city's, I'm proud that the city citizens and the city employees and the professionals that we work with, we really go toward the storm. We go to where the impact is. We go there, and we go there as fast as we can go. We also commit ourselves to continuously improving. We know, I said before at meetings that we're not perfect, and we're not. I think what we do is we strive to stretch and continuously improve. So I appreciate your time today, Dave. Thank you and your firm for the work you're doing to help us, bring about a better situation for Slayton Hill and Dulac and Tannery. And Mike, I thank you, and I thank all your public employees who've been working hard on this in tandem. So we hope you will participate in all these events and get involved. Remember to use LebAlert. LebAlert, sign up for LebAlert. And then you can get a LebAlert, and this is going to get right into your hands. Also, if you have a question, ask Leb. These are all on the city's website. I just urge people so much to get involved and on a daily basis look at the city's website because the website has just a wealth of information for you. And get on LebAlert. Thank you, and let's have a good fall, and we'll see if we can do to get us through this season into a beautiful spring, and we'll have a good fall, and a lot of work's going to be performed. Thank you.